Good evening, at least in my time. My name is Alun, and in this session, I am facilitating a session of Achtung, Cthulhu Dark. This is my tweak and hack of Cthulhu Dark to play in a World War II espionage setting. So game touchstones for this are Achtung Cthulhu, get it? Achtung Cthulhu Dark, Achtung Cthulhu, and World War Cthulhu. There's some other stuff in there that makes the rules different from Cthulhu Dark, but if you've watched any of the previous sessions, you will understand that. And if you haven't, hopefully you'll understand some of those differences at the end of this session. I've briefed the players in terms of lines and bells before, but we do have a new player this time, so I'm going to just make sure that Lara knows that there is a tab in the character keeper marked lines and veils. The ones that we've got in there so far, we are playing, we are playing with lines on harmed children, racism, sexual assault, and suicide. So that won't crop up in the fiction. And we're playing with veils on sexual contact and content and torture. That can happen in fiction, but we will draw a discrete curtain across it when that crops up, if that crops up. If there are any other lines or veils, Lara, that you want to add, feel free to just click them in that tab, and I will check in there shortly. So this is set in 1941. We are in Cairo. Cairo is insulated from the war. It's 1,500 miles from the front. The Allies, the British, Indian, Australian, New Zealand forces in North Africa have pushed the Italians almost out of the eastern part of Libya. But word has arrived that a German general has arrived named Rommel with something called the Africa Corps. And we know that he attacked just after the three characters who've come from London, Wilbur Strauss, Arthur Blake, and Avery Carlyle. Just after they got off the boat, we know that Rommel had counterattacked. I'm not saying anymore. We will go forward from there without any further messing about. We are playing as part of the Gauntlet. If you don't know about the Gauntlet RPG, you will find lots of stuff, or check the start of the first session. So with all that in mind, I would like, in character keeper order, please, can I say, Will, say hello and tell us something about Arthur Blake.
Hi, well, my name is Will, pronouns he, him, and those are the same pronouns as my character, Arthur Blake, an educated advisor who is versed in maybe like the shallows of the mythos, but he is a member of the British occult intelligence agency, the Pursuivants, codename Sharp, and this is his second tour.
Cut his teeth in Dunkirk last year, sent to North Africa this year. Paul, say hello and tell us about Wilbur Strauss.
Hello, I'm Paul, he, him, and I'm playing the character Wilbur Strauss, also he, him. Wilbur is a very basic man. He is a military guy, a tough NCO from the East End of London, like.
Which is all we really need to know. Thank you. At the other end of the social scale, Leandro, both Leandro and his character. Leandro, say hello, and introduce us to Avery Carlyle.
Hi, yeah, my name is Leandro. We use he, him pronouns. I do want to apologize. I just got a new chair, so it'll seem like I don't have half a face for this session, but I can't rectify that with this highfalutin chair that I got. Highfalutin is kind of a word you can describe Avery Carlyle as well, I guess. Who also uses he, him pronouns. He is a scion of an old money industrialist family who has, you know, been part of the great game of espionage for quite some time, and apparently that made him suited to working for the Pursuivants, although a certain group in the Pursuivants have decided to give him some extra inducement into working for them as part of this secret war through the means of threatening his illegitimate daughter. So that's fun.
Thank you for that. Lara, you're our new player. because in the Gauntlet we play with an open table, so sometimes people drop out, sometimes people drop in. So glad to have you here. Lara, say hello, and tell us about Angel Stoner and the wartime role that she is going to fulfill in this series.
Okay, yeah. Hi, I'm Lara. My pronouns are she, her. I am playing Angel Stoner, previously known as Angel Sharp. And Angel is a housewife posing as a male soldier, a plucky private. She comes from a history of thievery. She previously realized that there was a need for various prosthetics, and so she stole prosthetics from people, glass eyes, wooden legs, that kind of thing. And now she's in a soldier and a private. So yeah.
Can I ask some questions then? So she was a housewife, married housewife, unmarried housewife?
Yeah, she was married. Her husband was declared missing in action. We don't really know where he is.
Okay, and so what drove her from being, you know, a homebody, minding the home front and making a living out of thievery? Her husband is declared missing in action, and she sneaks into the army. So just join the dots for us.
Yeah, so I think that she wanted to take a more active role. She loved her husband. So part of her wanted to find him, but part of her also just wanted to do something more than sit at home and steal various body parts from people. She wanted to do more, have a more active role.
Right. So this is this something about duty, or is this something about just boredom?
I think it has more to do with boredom. I think that she is looking for something greater in her life right now, and this is the way to do it. Because
in this game, you choose a reason why you got involved in the secret war. You chose life is meaningless, so why not? It might at least be interesting.
Yeah.
And then it says, what are you looking for as an escape from such ennui, such boredom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was having a little bit of trouble with this, so I'm open to suggestions, but I think that she's just looking for more out of this life than what she's been getting. She's been stuck at home for all of these years. And so I think that she's looking for just something greater than her right now. But I'm open to suggestions.
No, I mean that's fine. I might pin you down later on exactly what, but we will try to provide Angel with a sufficient amount of excitement to just smooth out that boredom. So she's been in Cairo now, I guess, or he. We should refer to Angel as he, because that is the persona that Angel is presenting. So Angel will have been here probably 6 to 9 months. Is Angel disappointed that he's in Cairo? Or would he prefer to have been part of the advance that has swept the Italians 1,000 miles back away from Cairo?
Yeah, I think that he's disappointed, but I think that there was also something calling him here. Like, I think that he probably didn't put up as much of a fight as he probably could have. But when he got here, he's been here for 9 months, and he's not seeing a lot of stuff happening, and is wondering if he made a mistake.
Yeah. Life in Cairo is probably more exciting than somewhere in a backwater in Britain, but it's not quite what Angel signed up for. That's great. Thank you. So last night there was the Arthur, Wilbur, Avery, and Henry Wright went to the Kit Kat Club with their contact, Tubby Birmingham. And Tubby left in a huff after you pointed out that he was being too indiscreet. You found your own way home. Avery followed some suspicious characters from the club to the Egyptian National Museum, and then came back to the hotel. Wilbur, Arthur, and Henry came back to the hotel and spent the night there. So we're gonna cut to breakfast. Your appointment with the Italian lieutenant that you've been sent to interrogate is at 10 o'clock this morning. So I'm going to say that it's 8 o'clock, 8:30 by the time you've had breakfast. There is no sign of Henry, but Avery, Wilbur, and Arthur are at breakfast. Wilbur, you turned your mute off quickest. Oh, that was that mistake. Avery, you were second. Avery, what do we see?
I think Avery has like just kind of like a random tick of how he eats breakfast. Has clearly proportioned his portions into like delineated chunks, and he's kind of going through the methodical fashion as he kind of like casually kind of brings up. Any sign of Mr. Wright, gentlemen?
No, not seen him at all, Mr. Avery. Nothing at all. He looked a bit off last night. Definitely. Maybe I should go check up. Maybe I should go check on the man.
Yes, that would be most obliged if you would, Mr. Strauss. He was looking rather concerned about Mr. Carlyle last night. Perhaps the stress of this is too much for the men.
10 minutes later, Wilbur is back. The bed has not been slept in.
Oh, this is most unusual, Mr. Blake and Mr. Avery. The young man's gone missing, it seems. This is very unusual. I think we may have caused a bit too much heat. Maybe something has happened to him.
I fear Mr. Birmingham has not provided us with the best of lodgings. Mr. Carlyle, you pursued our followers to the museum, you said?
Yes. So whatever is going on, clearly that is a base of operations, so to speak.
Well, that gives us two leads.
A waiter approaches the table politely and says, "Excuse me, gentlemen, there's a soldier to see you, a private stoner."
Well, send them through then, sir.
And describe Private Stoner to us as he enters this. It's a kind of second-tier Cairo hotel for officers, gentlemen, and civilians, but it's better probably than barracks, Angel. So what do we see of our first shot of Angel Stoner?
Yeah, I think Angel is probably like a bit wide-eyed, like, whoa, kind of taking things in, but then trying to maybe regain their composure a little bit and look like they belong, and I guess trying to find who they're looking for.
And what I think I would describe based on the illustration that's been provided, I think what looks almost like a boy soldier. This is a slight young man, very fine featured, beardless, dirty blonde hair, but reasonably smartly turned out in uniform, approaches the table and I think probably snaps out a reasonable salute. Angel is your driver to take you to the hospital.
Thanks, Angel, but we actually work for a fucking living. We ain't no officers. We are civilians. So please keep it on the low. That's all we'll say. There's some nasty people out there, Angel, looking for us. So probably best you... Is Angel in civilian attire? No.
I think probably in uniform, because this is just a drive-in job. Angel, we'll have a flashback, I think, to you and the lieutenant who leads your platoon. And the platoon is it's just garrison duty. It's just standing outside, buildings, making sure the sandbags are straight. And I think, what's the lieutenant's name? Do we want to come up with a name for him?
Sure. Let's see. Let's go. He's a, what is he? A captain?
He's a lieutenant, so he's
lieutenant?
he's the lowest level of kind of officer.
Okay. Yeah, Lieutenant Barrymore.
And Lieutenant Barrymore is there at his desk, and he's filling in reports, and he looks at it. He says, "Oh, Stoner, I've got a simple job for you. Take one of the company vehicles, go to the Bristol Hotel, and there locate Mr. Blake and a party. You're to drive them to the military hospital, where apparently they're there to see someone. I don't know the details. Is that clear?"
Crystal, sir.
Right, well, make a good show, what? Off you go. Does Angel have any questions for Lieutenant Barrymore before they leave?
I think I maybe try to ascertain who this Mr. Blake is. Maybe what he looks like, what his job is.
I've no idea, Stoner. All I've got is a chit, and he holds up a tiny bit of paper. Says, comes from those shady chaps at the Ruston building. Just says, need a driver to the hospital from the Bristol Hotel. Need to be there by 10 at the outside. So, on your toes, lad, on your toes.
I think he perks up and is like, very well, and hustles off.
What kind of driver is Angel?
Not a good one. Very, very, very poor. Makes very sharp turns very quickly. Yeah.
That's good enough for me. And so there's a car outside the Bristol Hotel in which you, Private Stoner, are to take Mr. Blake and his party to the hospital, the military hospital, to the north of Cairo.
Well, do sit down, Mr. Stoner. I will have the way to bring over some coffee or tea.
Coffee, please.
Good call. And well, for finishing up here, we are.
At this point, the waiter leans close to Blake and says, "Excuse me, sir. You do understand officers and civilians?" Looking at Stoner.
I do understand officers and civilians, sir. And I would have thought you would understand the word of a gentleman.
I think that you need to do something else here to just help us understand how the staff will now respond to you. And apart from anything else, it allows me to illustrate the way that the dice mechanic works. So you always get to roll the white dice.
Yeah.
If you have expertise that relates to this, and I think the fact that you are an educated Oxford, minor fellow, I think you have expertise in dealing with staff. So expertise counts. I don't think you're going to work with a heavy weapon on this occasion.
I mean, Sergeant Strauss, if they give us any lip, crack open that violin case.
Yeah, I think we see Strauss's foot just tap the violin case at his beside the chair. Do you want to include your stress dice? The advantage of including the stress dice is that it gives you more dice to roll, and what you're looking for is the single highest number. However, if you include the stress dice, and it comes out as equal to or higher than any of the other dice you roll, then your stress goes up. And stress is the way that we measure physical, emotional, psychological, any kind of harm in this game. So with that in mind, Arthur, which dice will you roll?
I will just roll the normal dice and the expertise because
fine.
I'm not willing to incur stress to get this private some coffee. And I get 5.
1 to 3, usually there's some cost to success or there's no success. 4 or 5, it's success. 6, it works brilliantly, and there may be advantages, but there are consequences for rolling a 6 because you get too good a look at the world. So with a 5, that is normal success. So he kind of nods politely and gets the coffee. And I think that your relationship with the staff will stay on a fairly even keel, Mr. Blake. And so coffee is delivered. What conversation goes on?
This is very rum, Mr. Blake and Mr. Carlyle. I don't like this. Somebody in uniform. This has drawn a lot of attention. Can we fit this young man out with an outfit?
We will be heading to a military site shortly. I don't think that there's any way we can fully avoid being associated with the British military at this point.
Could Mr. Carlyle not furnish the young lad with an outfit, possibly?
But we will be driving into a military base, Strauss.
True. I was just thinking more getting observed on the streets of Cairo.
Perhaps. Stoners certainly look like you could do with a fresh set of clothes. Carlyle, did you bring any spares? That you'd be willing to part with, of course. I'm sure the pursuivants will reimburse the Carlyle family.
I'm sure I might have something that could fit Mr. Stoner if he would be obliged.
Whatever you all need. I find it odd that you need me out of my uniform, but whatever makes this easiest for you all.
Please, Mr. Carlyle, continue. I'm sorry.
Well, Mr. Stoner, we're here on business that we would prefer to keep under wraps and draw the least eyes on us, as Mr. Strauss has been so kind to point out. I do hope this wouldn't be an inconvenience on your normal day-to-day here, Mr. Stoner.
No, I'm here following orders.
I suggest, gentlemen, that perhaps with the mysterious disappearance of our man, Mr. Wright, that perhaps we need to keep an open eye out for enemy action. I'm wondering if perhaps our forces might be best split, and perhaps I could go interview this Italian chap, and you might investigate that museum and see if our wayward companion has shown up there.
That's a good idea. I also think we should try to relocate from these residents. I think this location's compromised. And Cairo's a big city. We should be able to sort of lose ourselves in a population of
many.
Population of many. Okay. Yes, we should be able to lose ourselves in the populace. So I think that's a task. My God, it's a massive place.
I wonder if perhaps the casual, Mr. Daniel Wilson, the doctor, may have some aid there.
Or maybe Private Stoner, who's been here for a long period of time, may know of some less salubrious residences that we may be able to take up.
Of course, Mr. Strauss. I forget that the common soldier has such ways about him.
Yes. A young lad knows a city very well. Is that not true, Private Stoner? I'm sure you've had many nights out here.
Indeed. I make it a habit to know where I am stationed, and I know a couple of nooks and crannies of the area.
Superb. Always industrious, a young private.
There's the Bristol Hotel in the center of Cairo, and these blocks of old Cairo to the kind of north and east of the Bristol Hotel, they're a rabbit warren of lanes and dead ends. And I suppose interesting question, Angel. When the other chaps in your platoon get a bit of leave to go into the city to have a bit of fun, do you go with them?
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, I don't want to arouse suspicion, but I also want to see what all the fuss is about. I want to know.
There are a number of extremely disreputable boarding houses, inverted commas, in this part of Cairo. Convenient for the Bristol, but not the Bristol.
Yeah, I think I probably mentioned some of those areas. And I say, I hope it wouldn't be a problem for gentlemen of your standing to be found in a place like that.
It beats a muddy trench in Dunkirk. Let's put it that way.
Good point, Mr. Blake. I'm sure we can all rough it, can't we, Mr. Carlyle?
I can manage dramatic eating of a pork cube.
Pork cube.
Now, I'm based on
how very dainty.
I didn't prepare this. They prepared their porks like that, apparently, here.
Now, given the sense we have of Avery, I think he's a not dissimilar build. He's probably taller than Angel, but they both seem to be quite slightly put together. So I dare say it would be possible for you to find a suit of clothes for young Stoner Avery, if you're willing.
Yeah. Actually, I wouldn't mind like having like a quick moment with just the two of them, probably back at the hotel room, if that's okay before we like set off.
Well then, can I suggest that we cut to you having delivered Stoner to your room, where a suit of clothes is laid out, and then Stoner will come back to the table when he's dressed. That gives Avery, Wilbur, and Arthur a moment at the table alone. Was that what you were after?
Oh no, I was after for a moment alone with Private Stoner.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Oh, then by all means, we cut to your room where a suit of clothes is laid out. What do we see, Avery?
Yeah, they're much finer than even though he's tried to rough him up because he knows he has to go incognito. But even still, these are some bespoke clothing, for sure. And I think Avery even mentions like, well, I do hope these clothes aren't too rich for your blood, Private Stoner. We have to make do with what we have here.
I suppose they'll do in a pinch.
Yeah, and I think like Avery would kind of just nod and will kind of like immediately just kind of like turn around and kind of like face the window, looking out into the dirty sprawl of Cairo, and just be respectful of that. I think he just kind of casually says, "If you don't mind me asking, Private Stoner, how much were you told of this assignment of yours?"
Not much. Enough to do my job.
What would you say your job is at this moment?
To deliver you folk to a hospital to speak with a gentleman. And to tag along wherever else you all might be headed.
Well, Private Stoner, I will just say that if you were to tag along with our work and what we're meant to do, and I think like Avery's like casually taking out like a cigar or cigarette or cigarillo, whatever he has in his case, you may find that you might be dragged into certain situations that could be, well, substandard for your well-being.
I think Angel's gonna walk over and take a puff of your cigarette and say, I think I can handle it.
Angel, let me ask you, what's the most scary thing that happened to you when you were, selling prosthetics on the black market in Britain?
I think the most scary thing, maybe. I think I've probably had to deal with a couple of, folk who, on the black market. I think that I've probably been threatened quite a bit. Maybe I've seen a couple of disturbing things. Along with the selling of prosthetics, I think that probably organs are also sold in this general category. So I think that I'm used to that kind of dismemberment. So
I think there is quite a rich black market in blood.
Yes.
For another game, another time. Okay, I just wanted to get some kind of sense of where you are at in terms of that fear rating. Avery, sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, I was gonna roll to make an honest human connection.
Aha. So sharing a cigarillo, while Stoner gets changed.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not looking. I hold up the cigarette case so he can take one. I'm not gonna. I'm being proper here. I'm looking out into the city.
Okay.
Change.
Okay, and this is probably the first time the audience gets an absolutely clear sense that Angel Stoner is not a man. And so there's that frisson in the theatre as we discover this what looked to be a young boy is actually a woman. Then yes, let's have you roll to make some simple human contact. The way in this game that stress can be reined back is by using what's called seek relief from the horror. Each of these moves grants a respite of one, allows you to erase a stress mark. So you erase a stress mark, and then you look for the one that says, if you look for honest human contact, you roll a d6, Avery.
Just the one. Okay. And of course it goes poorly. That's a 1.
So on a 1, that is Angel, see your hollow camaraderie for what it is, self-serving pretense, and you are ashamed. You cannot use your expertise and stress until stress goes up again. So Avery, you'll find there's a slot just underneath the stress track that says expertise available. If you click the drop arrow, it'll say not available or words to that effect. But your stress went down, so that's a good thing. But yeah, Angel clearly sees that you are just some kind of manipulative toff. And so I dare say that the atmosphere when you return down to the breakfast table is not quite as warm as perhaps Avery had hoped.
God, no. Absolutely not.
So what's the plan? What have Wilbur and Arthur been discussing a plan during this interlude?
Well, I think the plan, Mr. Blake, looking at some kind of like what's against us, threats and our opportunities. I think clearly the investigation of the museum, as you and Mr. Carlyle indicated, moving residents, that's another task, and interviewing that dirty, greasy Italian.
Well, my suggestion, Mr. Strauss, is that perhaps Mr. Stoner and I will travel there and hopefully distract any would-be pursuers. And you and Mr. Carlyle can investigate the museum and perhaps track down our wayward companion while we go. And we can
I think that's a good idea.
We can rendezvous at the lodgings that Mr. Stoner has provided us with.
Yes, I think that's a very good idea. That gives a good military and civilian head in both camps. So
Do
that's
be
a
careful
sound
with
tactical.
Now, Mr. Strauss, do keep the violin case close, but preferably keep it closed.
Of course I will, unless the situation deems otherwise. And then
Perhaps
me and Mr. Carlyle will unleash some fury.
Yes, well,
With a
old
violin?
strength. It's a machine gun inside the violin case.
I think Mr. Stoner is like,
You haven't seen me play the violin, Private Stoner. Oh, it's a joy to behold. People cry, they weep.
Yes, he's a mean fiddler.
Very well. So, yeah, we'll explain our plan to Mr. Carlyle and Private Stoner. Clearly, the private doesn't really get much of a choice. But Mr. Carlyle, are you happy with the plan?
I think Avery takes another dramatic puff of smoke to cover up for for his shame. And it's just,
You've gone a bit white, Mr. Carlyle. Are you all right?
just a little bit of indigestion. Not to worry. The plan seems sound.
It's those pork cubes. You should never ask a local to handle a pork cube. You know it's bad juju.
All right, Mr. Strauss, I didn't think your experience with pork cubes would be that expanded. I'll take your advice into account next breakfast.
Excellent. A wise choice, Mr. Carlyle. Very well. Gentlemen. Private Stoner, keep a good eye on Mr. Blake. He needs protecting at all times. Let's get on with the job.
Now, so here's the Bristol Hotel down here. The military hospital is off the top corner of this map, probably, another one of these little squares away. I mean, it's probably a 20-minute drive, if that. So it's no distance at all. Similarly, there again is the Bristol, and the National Museum. There's the Bristol. The National Museum is here. And that's probably a 20-minute walk. Because unless you want to take a taxi. So I think we will cut to Stoner driving, because the car is parked at the front of the hotel. Stoner driving Mr. Blake up towards the to the hospital. And yeah, we will see some slightly skiddy cornering. The rule of slow down into a corner and accelerate out of the corner appears not to have reached Stoner's training. Mr. Blake, what do we see of the conversation in the car, if anything?
Private Stoner, we're a man down and in somewhat more hostile territory than I hoped. Now, I hope that I can count on we, the country, can count on your discretion and your care. So in which case, could you perhaps slow down slightly?
Well, I figured that we needed to get to this hospital with all due haste.
Indeed, but ideally we would get there.
Sir, I think you need to trust me. I've been doing this for a little while. I think that I know my way.
Indeed.
The
well,
wheel.
Never let it be said that British men can't do it better than the locals, especially when it comes to bad driving.
And so, in a cloud of dust, with perhaps horse-drawn carriages and wagons scattering before them, Stoner and Blake disappear up the road, leaving Mr. Carlyle and Mr. Strauss to do what? Who takes the lead, Avery? Is this social class or is this military expertise?
I think Avery will straight up ask if Mr. Strauss, have you ever been to a museum before?
Of course, I've been to a museum.
Just
the Museum of Crime in London, the Police Museum. I've been there. I've been to a jail museum. I've been there, and I've been to the Imperial War Museum. I've been there. That's the only museums in London, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I have found that if you've been to one museum, you have kind of seen them all. So we should have no trouble navigating through this particular one.
I think you're right, but I am concerned that we may be being trailed. And I think this is really your expertise, Mr. Carlyle. So I think you could maybe take us on some dodgy route, a bit risque, shall we say?
Mechanically, Avery doesn't know that he can't use his expertise right now. But yeah, I think like definitely Avery's like he's being called up to task by Mr. by Wilbur. So yeah, absolutely, he will just like, and it's just, well, if you'd be glad to follow my lead, then Mr. Strauss, then
Of course.
follow on. And I think, yeah, he will. It is a short walk, yeah, from there to the museum, but I think, yeah, I will take a more circuitous route to try and throw off anyone tracking.
So back alleys, popping into a shop, popping back out, that kind of thing. That's definitely tradecraft. So you would be rolling with expertise if it was available to you, but it's not. So you're rolling with the white dice. Do you want to include the stress dice, Avery?
Yeah. Like I have a buffer from having lost that stress.
Yeah.
All right, so stress dice a 1, but the white dice a 6.
Great. So on a 6 to do something else, you succeed brilliantly, and the GM will agree with you what extra benefit you get. So what is the benefit that you want, Avery?
We spot any trackers before they spot. Oh, actually, no. The plan is to like get rid of them. Yeah, I think like we get rid of them in like quicker, in double time almost. Like we can make it to the British Museum without anyone really being aware that we're making our way there.
Fine. So you are going to arrive absolutely clean. No tail, no one knows you're coming. It works perfectly. But unfortunately on a 6, but also say what reminds you of the horror of the war and or grants you an insight into the horror of the secret war. So what does this make you, what worries you in all of this, Avery?
What was the detail that Blake added from last?
He spotted. I'm going to tweak that. I'm going to retrofit this slightly. He spotted someone in the Kit Kat Club who simply appeared to have blank eyes with no reflection. Now, what I'm going to just slightly tweak it is a man wearing those little sunglasses who looked over them at Mr. Wright, and that's when he saw that the eyes were almost just darkened pits.
Are these the same sort of blank-eyed people we saw in the church in Dunkirk, or very different?
I don't think that Henry's discussed them in detail, Wilbur, so I'm not sure. And unless you see one, I think I struggle to help you at this
Possibly
point.
the one that Mr. Carlyle points out.
So, Mr. Carlyle, what do you see that is slightly freaky or very worrying? Your choice.
Well, first off, I spot this man in a trench coat in the middle of the Cairo sun, which is, and a hat as well. And I think, yeah, I think like I think they had a newspaper up. We're probably at some sort of park. We decided to take a detour, and I did kind of notice at the corner of my eye this man in the coat, and I think like his hat is doing this effect where like you can't see his like head. Might be familiar with this effect, Alan, from our weekend adventures. And yeah, I think so that effect is kind of like weirding me out a bit. And I think actually I kind of want to modify away from like seeing this to like the effect being, I think I will just casually like ask Mr. Strauss. Now, I know myself and Mr. Wright include Private Stoner in this group that we have less than ample experience with what you call the secret war. Well, we have some time to kill, if you would not mind enlightening me on what yourself and Mr. Blake have encountered, I think it would be useful for everyone involved.
Okay.
Before you answer that question, can Avery roll for stress then, please? So roll the green dice. If that comes up higher than your current stress, your stress will increase by 1, and of course that could give you your expertise back.
All right, I rolled a 5, so it gets back my expertise.
Fine. But I just want to be clear. Are you not wanting to see a guy like Henry saw?
I thought about it, but then I think I'm actually more interested in like trying to form not trying to form a connection, but like seeing this interplay with Mr. Strauss and Avery.
That's great. Okay, so Strauss, what do you say to Avery when he asks you to tell you a war?
Oh, we saw lots of things in Dunkirk. It was hell. We saw lots of things that would curdle your blood, Mr. Carlyle. I'm afraid,
For instance,
for instance, we saw some right dodgy geezers with some right dodgy eyes. And then we went to a mythical plane and we saw some right weirdness there. And we saw some woman called the Blood Witch. And it was very, very weird. But Mr. Turin told us we shouldn't really talk about it too much. So I can't really go into too much detail.
I think we're just having not that. Take out another cigarette. Which says, well,
That'll be the death of you, Mr. Carlyle. Those sticks, they're not very good for you.
Wilbur, there are bits of that op in Dunkirk that you don't like to think about, aren't there? Would you roll for stress, please?
That's why I put it all in the back and I told him a glossy story. I didn't go into any details there.
Okay, I'll let you have that one. So you make your way without any tails. You don't see anyone following you. No one. You're pretty certain, Avery, nobody is following you. And you come to the slightly august portals of the Egyptian Museum, where there is a large sign on the gate at the, there's a kind of open space before the great portico. And there's a sign saying, closed for the duration of hostilities. Let me cut back to Arthur and Angel.
You muted yourself, Alan.
I did. In something of a cloud of dust, Stoner breaks the car hard outside a military hospital. You are probably 10 or 15 minutes early as a result of that drive. And what do you do, Blake? Because Stoner's done what Stoner was supposed to do, which is to bring you here.
Stoner?
Yes, sir.
I could do with a man I could rely on in a tight corner. Could that be you?
I think I would be up for the challenge.
Well, is your CEO expecting you back anytime?
No, not at all.
Well, if he is, I'll make sure that the right words come from the right people to make it all go away. I'm requisitioning you, Stoner, as my personal driver for our duration here in Cairo. Yes?
Very good.
And as my personal driver, you'll be accompanying me into the hospital. I need another set of eyes with me at all times. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Good. Well, you have your papers?
Indeed, I do.
Good. Do you speak any Italian, perchance, Stoner?
I'm afraid not, sir.
Oh, I have to fall back on my...
I mean, on that, Angel is a not particularly Anglo-Saxon name. I'm very happy for Stoner to have an Italian grandmother.
Okay.
Yeah, Angela. Yeah. So perhaps you do speak a...
Yeah, I think I probably speak. Yeah.
Good. It's been some time since I practiced the old language. I've been more more Sanskrit and Latin these days. But anyways, I digress. I must warn you that any information that is disclosed in your presence, you are hereby sworn under the Official Secrets Act. You will go no further unless you are cleared to do so by myself or Sergeant Strauss. Understood?
Crystal clear.
Good
Crystal
luck.
clear, but slightly freaky. Would you roll for stress, please, Stoner?
Yeah.
So just roll the green dice, and if it's above your current stress, which is 1, it will go up by 1.
All right.
Because for all that Angel has been wishing for a bit of excitement, they can shoot you or hang you if you don't follow the Official Secrets Act. This is quite serious, and maybe you're thinking back to your grandmother, and maybe wishing that, like Uncle Vito, you'd gone to America, not come to Britain. Couldn't resist it.
Yeah.
And so you go up the steps. It's an old. I would have thought this was built in the 1800s for British troops stationed in Egypt. So it's brick, it's grand, it's imperial, and not very busy, it must be said. So what do you do when you get through the big doors, Arthur?
I go to the nearest administrative-looking person, and
there's a porter.
yeah. Excuse me, sir. I'm looking for Dr. Daniel Wilson.
If you would please sit, sir. He's an Egyptian. If you would please sit, I will send for the doctor.
I would rather be taken to him, if that's quite all right.
Moment, sir.
We are old friends. It is fine.
A moment, sir. And he calls an orderly over and says, "Take this gentleman to the second floor to Dr. Wilson's office." And he leads you up this. There's a grand staircase that goes up the middle of this building, marble, granite. The grandest hospital, I think, that Stoner's been anywhere near. And then you begin to see some wards off to the side, where you will see some of the casualties that have come back from the front. That's where you wanted to be, wasn't it, Stoner? At the front.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just noticed that there are men in there with limbs missing, there with bandaged heads, burns cases. What's your reaction, Stoner?
I mean, I think that he maybe turns a shade paler than usual, and then just kind of shakes his head and kind of keeps his head down. Doesn't really look at the folk in there anymore.
Could you roll for stress, please?
Yeah. A 5.
Increase stress by another 1.
Yeah.
Arthur, you've not seen the product of war since you got back from Dunkirk. Would you roll for stress, please?
Sure thing. And I got a 5 as well, so my stress goes up.
And I think then probably as we see both of you avert your eyes from the casualties of war, the porter delivers you to an office with Dr. Wilson's name on it. And I think that's a point where we'll take a break, if that's okay. So shall we be back in our seats at 10 past the hour? See you then.
See, I imagine even Paul's gone for a cup of tea at this point, hasn't he?
Me?
Yeah, have you gone for tea?
I'm not too much for hot. No, tea definitely isn't my thing, mate.
I thought we might have like the British trilogy.
No,
Paul drinking tea in unison.
That's one thing I've not really got into. Coffee in the morning I can do, but that's only a recent thing for me. It's always normally Coke.
In the morning, Jesus.
The drink. I always used to be. Yeah. Just had to clarify the point, just in case somebody thought ill of me.
Back
Alan,
to Barrymore again.
Yeah, Barrymore again.
Laura, let me just explain. At any point, if you look at the other moves tab, you'll find the seek relief from the horror move. At any time where you can make the fiction work to trigger one of those moves, then you can reduce your stress. There's always a cost, as we discover with poor old Avery. But, so what I'm saying is don't feel you just have to let that stress go on. You can, at any point where you think there's an opportunity to insert a bit of fiction that would allow that to those stress relief to be triggered, to go ahead. Okay, just a heads up. We cut back to the gate of the Egyptian Museum, where the sign says closed for the duration of hostilities. But Avery, you watched those people from the cab last night. Underneath that street light there, and then they went through these gates, but now they're kind of padlocked.
I think can I see if those locks can be picked
using something like electrical or mechanical repair as your expertise with mechanical things, conceivably?
Yeah, I was going to do that. I saw Paul, you unmuted there. Was there anything you want to add?
No. You go ahead.
So with expertise, but will you include your stress dice, Avery?
Yeah, I think I'm good for now. I don't know. There might be some stress of having to do all this performance in front of Mr. Strauss. I'm sure he's not judgy. No, he's
because it's broad daylight. It's the middle of the morning. There are cars passing on the main avenue next to the museum. Wilbur, what are you doing while Avery is bent over this padlock?
I shall basically sort of shield him from behind and keep a good eye out to see if we're being observed. I clearly believe Mr. Carlyle did lose any tail we had, but there could already be some people observing here. So I'll try and shield his actions as much as possible. And
to be honest, it's probably not quite as exposed as I led you to believe, because if we have a look at this is the front of the museum, and I think it's down this side road. I was thinking it was on this main thoroughfare, but there's an old barracks opposite, so I think probably it's not as busy as I thought it was. So Avery.
Yes, I decided not to include my stress die because Wilbur shielding me is a tacit acknowledgement that at least he thinks I'm competent. And I rolled a 5 as my highest.
And with a 5, you succeed perfectly adequately. There's it doesn't take long. There's a satisfying click as the padlock comes undone, and you can move through the gate.
Yeah, I think I'll just kind of like slip in and it clicks, and then it's kind of like open the gates and kind of like slip in. I just tap Wilbur on the shoulder so that he can follow through.
Well done, Mr. Carlyle. Well done. Some skills indeed.
So it's, I guess, about 40-50 yards to this grand portico for the Egyptian Museum. The front door, or look for a side door?
Oh, I think the side door, Mr. Carlyle.
Yes, there's no point in inviting ourselves in and just slamming through the front, is there?
Do you lock the door after you, Avery? The gate?
If I can, it's a padlock, but yeah.
It is a padlock, so yeah, you can just click it shut if you want it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just the way it was when you arrived. And then round looking for a side door.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of small kind of service exits, service doors to one side, and one bigger door, which looks like where deliveries arrive, because it's big enough to take some quite big pieces of monument. What's your preference, Avery?
Ooh. Probably that latter one.
I think it's probably one of those big kind of metal roller doors, but there's a kind of door set into it. But again, it's locked, Avery.
All right, I'm gonna have to keep rolling through all this.
What could go wrong?
What
Do you
could
include your stress dice?
Well, I'll include it for this one. Actually, no. I'm gonna tempt fate.
Okay.
The tempting continues to pay off. That's a 4.
Which is, again, the same result. Click. In you go. To a large, dark loading bay. What do you do?
Now, clearly some gentlemen came in last night that you observed, Mr. Carlyle, but we have no idea what they were doing. But it is odd that this building's closed. So I think we should look for any sign of recent activity. Do you agree?
You could try to find the lights.
I think probably Wilbur's trying to go look for lights, and Avery's kind of like nod in the dark, and then he realizes not in the dark and just says agreed.
So lights or torch, Wilbur?
To be honest, a torch just draws horrendous attention to yourself.
Whereas putting the lights on in a deserted museum will be fine.
Well, it causes a lot of light, but it might not be pinpointed on you. Plus we've got the violin. What more does a man need?
So I think beside the door, there's a large kind of fuse box with a big kind of lever on it, and there's a satisfying clunk, and then we get that slight hum that you get in atmospheric movies where all these big lights in the ceiling come on, illuminating this large loading bay. And from here you can get into the museum. So what do you do?
I think we should have a look around. Look for any
together
signs
or
of
separately?
I think we could look around together. Do you not think, Mr. Carlyle? Safety in numbers and all that. We only have one violin.
I've always been a fan of that instrument, and I'll defer to your experience, Mr. Strauss.
I think we should work together and have a look around, try and find some signs of recent activity as a group.
So you are cooperating to investigate, then?
I think we might be. Unless gamist, it wouldn't be in my interest to do so.
Let's assume that is what you're doing. So both of you are looking around, but you're staying together. So what this means is that both of you get to roll your dice of choice. The best result you get will be the result that we get, but also the worst dice roll will apply to both of you. So let me start then with Avery. Are you going to make a case for me that this is with expertise or without?
I think I can try to make that case for like tradecraft if he's looking for anything that could be like untoward or like just like a bit off around this museum. I'll try to make that case.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. So you're rolling with expertise. Will you include your stress dice?
I'm gonna keep tempting faith. I'm just gonna. Well, we'll see. We'll see how this goes.
So roll the 2 dice.
I rolled a 4 and a 5, so fate continues to just reward me.
Let's see if Wilbur is rather clumsier, because I'm struggling to see expertise here.
No, I think I've clearly done some burglary jobs.
Child criminal. I'd forgotten the child criminal.
So I think that will give me some sort of knowledge of
I think it
casing
will.
a joint.
I think
Okay, here we go. 2 dice with no stress. Double 1. Get in there.
Okay, so the best result is 5, which means that you get to ask me a question each. But you also rolled a 1, which means that on a 1, I'll read it. You fail or succeed at you get the bare minimum amount of information, but also mark the mission clock. Because I think that when Straussy is, just poking about, there's a kind of as some really valuable ancient Egyptian pots clatter to the ground.
Just some old pots.
I will mark the mission clock, which means that both the arrest section are now marked. Just to remind you, the enemy has enough evidence to want to interrogate a PC. Expect the GM to bring significant forces to the PC and make them flee the opposition or face arrest. Now, clearly, you're in British territory here, so arrest will not quite be as straightforward as that. Until both boxes are marked and the order comes through for an assault. So there is 1 box to mark before they will actively come after you wherever you are. But you do get to ask me a question each. Avery first, you rolled the better dice, so you must be a better role player.
It's the luck of the draw. Yeah, I want to know. Sorry, I took up all the good luck. I took all the good rolls. Yeah, this is why we should keep alternating. Yeah, I kind of want to know. I kind of want to find a trace of those folks that I trailed. Museum, like where can I find their trail?
I will let you find a trail. So you have a trail because it hasn't been opened now for 18 months. You can find a trail, and the trail will tell you that there has been regular coming and going. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Wilbur, do you want to ask me a question?
What's the most obvious... Where are we tactically weak in this situation? Where's our most obvious point of... If we're assaulted, where's it going to come from?
Lines of sight are terrible here. This is an old style museum with enormous glass cases that go floor to ceiling, with vast Egyptian monuments, and the trail that Avery has spotted in the dust is moving between these. So lines of sight are very poor indeed. That is the risk. Okay. Seem fair?
Yep. Seems fair.
Okay. So basic information, there is a trail. The question, yes, you can follow it, Avery, and there has been significant coming and going along that trail through the dust. The tactical difficulty here is line of sight is poor. There could be something around every corner. Let's cut back to the hospital, where Mr. Blake has knocked on the door. It's opened, a brusque ginger man with a large moustache says, "Yes, what can I do for you? What?
Dr. Wilson?
Yes, who are you?"
My name is Mr. Blake. I was sent from the Rorham building,
Rostam.
The Rostam building.
I need you to roll to investigate, Arthur.
Okay.
And tradecraft or some kind of psychology would be helpful experience. But I'm not sure you've got it.
No, I could only possibly put that at forbidden knowledge, but no. I will include my stress die.
Okay, go for it.
I get a 4 on my stress die. So I will, do I tick my stress up now?
It goes up automatically on that one. But he pauses when you mention the Rustam building, and he says, "I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting a Mr. Blake." Stoner, young angel, would you roll, please? Because I think there's a chance you may spot something here.
Okay.
Because you've moved in some circles. So I'm going to give you expertise. So you're rolling the white dice and the orange dice. Do you want to take the risk of including your stress dice as well?
Remind me what the deal with the stress dice is again.
Okay. So if you put the stress dice in, the chance of rolling a high number goes up.
Okay.
Yeah, because you roll 3 dice instead of 2.
Right.
But if the stress dice is equal to or is the highest dice that you roll, your stress will automatically go up by 1.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'll risk my stress. Okay. So I got, my stress was a 6, but my white was also a 6.
Okay, so the stress dice is equal to or higher than, so your stress does indeed go up by 1.
Okay.
Just as well that young Stoner was wishing for a bit of excitement. But you can ask me 2 questions about this man or that exchange. You can ask me to clarify what you see going on. Over to you.
Okay. I guess what makes me suspicious of this man? What makes me uneasy?
I think what makes you uneasy is that he is suspicious of Arthur.
And do I recognize him or his name at all? Do I know anything of a?
What do you want to know about Dr. Wilson? Do you want to have seen Dr. Wilson around the barracks?
I think that could be interesting.
Because I could allow you to say, is this Dr. Wilson?
Okay, yeah.
This is Dr. Wilson. Yeah. But he is clearly suspicious of Arthur, and the suspicion went up when he mentioned the Rustum building, which you know, because everyone in Cairo does, Stoner, is where British intelligence is based. And they're leaky as all hell.
Oh, I'll be honest, I thought the Ruston building was the Swevens headquarters.
Oh, I see. No,
Sorry.
You mean from the Royal College of Arms.
I do, yes. Sorry.
Fine. And that assuages it a bit, but I have to go with the fiction.
Yeah, sure. But he wasn't expecting Arthur Blake, was he? So
he wasn't expecting Arthur Blake. I wasn't expecting a Blake, he says.
And you were expecting a Mr. Sharp, perhaps?
Come in.
Apologies. I'm afraid local intelligence wasn't quite what we hoped for.
Now, Stoner, that's the first time you've heard Blake describe himself as Sharp. Of course, that is your real name. Yeah. So I'll just leave that sitting on the shelf for you to do what you will with shortly, or not at all. And he nods you in, and he says, you gave me a bit of a shock there. The Rustum building's leaky as all hell.
Yes, and so is that lovely fellow, Mr. Birmingham.
Tubby Birmingham's a buffoon.
Yes, well, you said it better than I could, sir.
You're here to see the Italian?
Yes, we are here to see Mr. Giovanni Ricci, I believe, based on your report.
Yes, I've put him out on the veranda where you can have a quiet word. Do come this way.
Do you have his medical records?
Yes, I've got them here, and he gives them to you. And as he walks you,
Stoner, if you could take these.
Yeah, take Stoner.
Do you? Because I think that probably the doctor and Arthur will kind of walk up the corridor to where you're heading, leaving Stoner behind with the file to follow them. Stoner, do you keep the file closed?
I think Stoner maybe takes a quick peek when the others aren't looking.
This is the medical file of a Lieutenant Ricci. Ricci, I'm not sure what the Italian pronunciation is, who was captured in the town of Benghazi when the British took it about a month and a half ago. And he's been here ever since. His notes are headed shell shock. And it appears that he is, for the most part, pretty vacant. But he does, on occasion, in the notes, it says sometimes rambles incoherently. But I think probably, Stoner, you've seen enough police files over the years, because you've been in some of them, to know that this is a very, very, very superficial file. And so we cut then to seeing our large red-headed Dr. Wilson and Arthur Blake making their way up this cool marble corridor towards a bright light. The veranda overlooking the grounds at the back of the hospital. And there are various convalescents scattered about. There's a record player that is just playing some 1940s kind of jazz, perhaps, maybe a little bit of swing. As he's been walking you up, Arthur, he says he's very vacant most of the time. But as my note to head office said, occasionally he talks about terrible things coming. My Italian's poor, so I can't pick the detail out of it. But recently I've discovered that he appears to calm down and become more lucid when we play him some Italian opera. So the record is locked in the bottom of that cabinet, and he gives you a small key. That might help. Is there anything else you need from me?
I suppose that during any of his ramblings, he's mentioned a Muller, a Klaus, or the word Prometheus.
Muller, he might have said something about a Muller, but again, my Italian's not good enough to know what.
Well, worth knowing anyways. Physically, any threat?
No, he's been gentle as a lamb, to be honest. He mostly just stares into space. I'm struggling to hang on to him, to be honest. We need the beds, particularly with what's kicking off around Benghazi now. So at some point I'll have to send him back to the POW cage. He's not sick. He just needs to be allowed to sit somewhere and have someone help him eat.
Might be an important asset. If it comes to that, would you be willing to keep him here? Medically.
Look, I can probably find a way.
Wound gets infected, something like that, yes?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll have to insert a wound into his medical records.
Yes,
because let's be clear, there's not a scratch on him.
Really?
No. He was in a hospital in Benghazi. I guess that committed there for shell shock. And so when we evacuated all the Italians out of Benghazi, he ended up on my watch, so to speak.
And there was no sign that he'd been shelled or any kind of.
Look, I haven't seen his service record. Clearly, a lot of the Italians were hit badly, but as I understand it, he was in that hospital. He was left in that hospital when the Italians retreated out of Benghazi, right. And before we cut him off and cut him up.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Well, Stoner and I have it from here.
Well, if you need me, and he points, there's a nurse on, just going from patient to patient, checking they're okay, got a drink of water or whatever else.
Yeah.
He says,
Mr. Wilson,
there's the key.
thank you, Mr. Wilson. Do you think what our friends may do for you in return for this service to the Percys?
Look, old chap, I'm in this for king and country, so if I can be helpful, I can be helpful.
Of course, and I'm simply extending the offer in return. But thank you, sir.
Angel, do you say anything about the file as you make your way to the end of the veranda where the Italian is in a bath chair?
Yeah, I think I point out to Mr. Blake that this file seems a little incomplete. And that it seems to be missing a couple of details.
Well, perhaps something to pursue with Mr. Wilson once we've had a word with Lieutenant Ricci here. Could you?
May I see the record that he gave to us?
Yes, of course, Private Stoner.
What record is it?
Now, if I had a better knowledge or was better prepared, I would come up with the name of an Italian opera singer of the late 1930s and a piece. But it's a tenor. It's a male tenor, and I think it might be his greatest hits. Various operatic arias for a romantic male lead. Okay.
Yeah, I think that Stoner is probably familiar with this. I think my grandmother was probably actually an ex-opera singer at the time, and actually, so I was taught in her ways. So I think I'm familiar with some of this music.
Fine, that's fine. So what's the plan then, Arthur?
Stoner, if you could set up the equipment. And Arthur, I think Arthur would like to pull out the. Is it a thing that they would have had back then? Would they have had tape recorders that you could portable? Would that be?
Sadly, no.
No, that's the later thing then, isn't it?
I think Dimbleby's D-Day report was done on a wax record. Okay,
then no, don't have one of those. Just have a notebook and my shorthand and.
Yeah.
I will sit down and I'll say, Private, he may appear to be shell-shocked and broken, but in my experience, when a man's mind breaks, the whiplash can be quite something. So do keep an eye out.
I think Stoner looks a little perplexed and says, very well, if you say so.
And I will begin the interrogation as we play the record and introduce myself.
And Ricci is, I thought I had a picture of Ricci, but maybe I didn't.
I thought you had a picture of Ricci.
Oh, I do. He's on the wrong page. He's on the London briefing page.
Yeah.
Young man in his mid to late 20s. But he looks a lot more drawn than in that picture. Hollow cheeked, and he's kind of sitting like this, just staring into the distance. What's the first thing you do?
Buongiorno. In the Inglorious Bastard sense. But no, I just say, hello, Mr. Ricci. My name is Mr. Blake. I'm here to talk to you about what you saw. I'm here to take you home. Mr. Ricci, my colleague, Professor Muller, recommended you quite highly.
And that, I think, is when the aria kicks in, because I think Stoner was setting that up, wasn't he? And as this tenor voice begins to waver across the veranda up there on the second floor, Ricci goes, and let's cut back to the museum. At the museum, so there is a trail, there is plenty of places for someone to hide Wilbur. I love doing this in more indie narrative games. Is there a particular order that you're following the trail in?
What's initiative? What the heck is that?
There is probably a 10-foot pole to be found somewhere.
Gosh. I guess like the question is like, is it better now to follow this trail than to like abscond because of all the attention we've got? I think I kind of like ask like Mr. Strauss, how's our position?
Oh, always risky, Mr. Carlyle. Always risky. But we have a job to do. Let's get on it. Like a Scotch bonnet.
I prefer that too. Well, I prefer that to being desperate. Let's go. And I think we'll follow that trail.
Follow that trail. So I'm reading Avery because he found the trail. He's following the trail, and Wilbur is bringing up the rear. And it winds through this kind of it's just it's just so many monuments, sections of tablet, carvings, statuary, cabinets with tiny pots, fragments of pots. And so
like a load of crap. That's what it looks like.
Who keeps a load of broken pots? But Avery, the trail leads you through this large hall to the staircase that runs up and down to the building. So the stairs go up to a gallery and then down to the basement. And the trail runs down.
Yeah, I think I'll ask again.
I think down, Mr. Carlyle. There's always bad things down, and that's what we're against. Do you want me to go first, just in case it gets a bit hairy?
No, I just want to be sure that you're ready to play your best. Now I'm blanking because everyone would know what kind of like a violence, your best solo, just in case.
Of course. Let's just get it out for a tune-up, shall we? And I'll put it down on the ground, open the case, pull it out, cock it a few times, make sure it's nice oiled, load the magazine. Oh, I think we're ready to play now, Mr. Carlyle. Should we go see if there's any friends that would like to hear?
Now, this allows me to just illustrate for Lara's understanding of the way the system works. There's a load part of the character sheet of the character keeper where I've marked you as light because you're just lightly loaded. You will notice that Wilbur is medium loaded, and that means that there are 5 boxes under light and medium. He can carry 5 items worth of stuff. And then if you go down, you'll see Sten gun, which is a submachine gun. That takes up 2 slots. And so Wilbur has marked those 2 slots. He has 3 more he can mark from that bag he's carrying. So you never have to tell me what equipment you're carrying until such time as you need it. Yeah. So checks the bolt. There's a kind of satisfying kind of and he heads further down this staircase into the dark, because you've put this floor's lights on, but the lights are not on down there. So
I will check an electric torch for Avery.
Okay, so nice big good service torch, and that we see that I think over Wilbur's shoulder as you make your way down. It's kind of bobbing. The light is bobbing along this staircase as you go down. Wilbur, that's when you hear voices. What do you do?
Can I see anything?
No.
I think this is a time to use a hand signal to indicate to Mr. Carlyle, and to be quiet. And I think this is a time when we need to slink forwards, so really slow the pace of movement down, and try to creep forwards to see what's going on.
So this isn't about investigating to find out what they're saying. This is about getting closer to them.
Yes.
That is roll to do something else. I think that Mr. Strauss's fieldcraft will count as part of this. So Mr. Strauss will roll with expertise. Do you include your stress dice?
No, we will just go with the expertise, please. Here we go. Rolling away. 3 and a 4. 4's good enough for me.
Okay. So you're getting closer. I can tell you they're speaking German.
That is not a good sign. That is not a good sign for them.
And they are behind that door. Around that corner behind that door. So I think we see Wilbur kind of looking round, and you can see the door because there's light beyond it.
So I don't know how many. How many voices can I hear talking?
Is that a roll to investigate?
Yeah. Why not?
I'm going to give you expertise, I think, because I think fieldcraft or tradecraft would apply. Do you both want to do this, or are we relying on Wilbur and Avery's back a bit?
I think we're kind of relying on Wilbur because we're one box away from filling up this damn clock.
Okay.
Less chances of a failure, the better.
So, just me. I'm going to roll expertise and the normal dice. Here we go. A 3 and a 3.
Okay. Roll to investigate. You get the bare minimum amount of information you need to proceed. There are several voices, but also mark the mission clock due to noise and or clumsiness of approach. So I will mark the assault box on the mission clock, and we will cut back to the hospital, where the interrogation is proceeding. It's pretty rambling. How is I need to understand how this is going, because he's speaking Italian. Arthur has buongiorno.
No, Arthur speaks Italian. I don't speak Italian. That was why I said that.
Oh no, I thought we were using Angel as the interpreter.
Well, I think Angel's the perhaps like Arthur knows it in a classroom setting kind of thing, so he's able to ask the questions and conduct, but Stoner might pick up the things, okay, like the full details kind of stuff.
Okay, well, this is rambling conversation where he drifts off the point. I think it boils down to how many questions you get to ask me, Arthur, when you roll to investigate.
Okay, well, I think I get expertise in this because I think that my esoteric research, these ramblings, is not quite unlike trying to decipher the ramblings of the mad Arab Abdul Azhar before he was picked from limb by invisible monsters in this very city.
So why don't we go with expertise? Do you want to include your stress dice?
You know what? This is important, so I'm going to. Oh, one thing I maybe considered crossed my mind is perhaps there's an invocation that we picked up that would allow me to rip the information directly from his brain, and I could get every bit of information rather than just a question.
Well, I will remind you that anyone who sees you cast a successfully harness the power of the mythos will risk stress. You will take stress and then may take stress.
Yeah.
So
I suppose it's going to depend on how rambly he is. Maybe that'll be my escalation if he doesn't. So you know what? I'm not going to include the stress dice. We're just going to do it.
And Tom mentioned that maybe Angel can assist with a co-op, if that's possible. Since
I think that works, because I think that it is using Angel's more up-to-date use of Italian to pick the bones out of this. So shall we start with Arthur rolling the white dice and the orange dice?
Sure. Arthur gets a 6.
And the white dice is a 1.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to Angel then. Rolling, I think expertise counts because she is a curious housewife back in Civvy Street. And we know she speaks Italian. So I think it's the white dice and the orange dice again.
Okay. All right, 6 and a 3.
Gee whiz. So both of you rolled a 6. So both of you are going to suffer some of the problems around a 6. But you do get to ask me 2 questions each.
Okay.
So I'm going to suggest that we start with Arthur, because I think he's better informed of what he might want to know.
Yes.
I will tell you the basic information you need to proceed is that it is clear that he spent some time in the desert with Germans.
Okay. Okay. And that was probably the desert airfield that he's been referring to in the ramblings that they sent back to us. Projekt Prometheus, Mr. Ricci, and Professor Muller. Are you acquainted with them?
Muller, charming man, and then he told me what they were doing, and those things just came out of the sand. Stoner, do you have a follow-up question for that?
Yeah, I think I'm going to press on the things coming up out of the sand, and maybe ask, like, what do you mean by the things coming out of the sand? What did they do?
We'd had civilized, urbane conversation. Tenor is playing in the background. And then he just gave them our bearers, the men who'd carried everything we needed. He just offered them up. And these blank-eyed creatures devoured them. Arthur, second question.
I mean, Arthur's got a million questions, right? But I think that his most important one is where? Where can we find? Where were you in the desert?
Deep desert, the sand sea. Makili, Abdul took us there. He got me out. Took me back to Benghazi.
Out of character, do we know what he was doing there? Like what his mission was?
No. There's talk of them building some kind of desert airfield. But beyond that, just him saying the end is nigh, really.
Out of character, and which will be briefed to Stoner as soon as, fictionally, not just telling a random private our whole sort of details. The British intelligence is hunting down Projekt Prometheus, the German counterpart kind of thing, which has been doing all kinds of nefarious things across the warfront. And Ricci's ramblings is linked to this professor that's also linked to Projekt Prometheus, Professor Muller, who is just confirmed is there. So as far as Arthur's concerned, you know, like whatever there is that they're doing is probably more to do with these mythical creatures rather than building an airbase or whatever it is that the cover story is, kind of thing.
Okay.
Could I just clarify one question, I think, before we finish that? Based on what he just said, would that be enough to start looking in the desert? Because I obviously do not know, like, desert landmarks, references, etc., kind of thing, as a real person.
What I can refer you to is, if you look in the character keeper, there's a tab called North Africa 1941.
I see.
Which is an actual British Army 1941 March map. This is literally just been drawn when you get there. If you look at the far right-hand side where it's marked Egypt, Cairo is about 1,000 miles off the right-hand side of that map.
Jesus, we've got a long way to go to get to Makili then.
The border that you can see that runs between Siwa at the bottom right and Jarabub. Siwa is in Egypt, Jarabub is in Libya. The Libyan Sand Sea is that vast expanse of dunes at the bottom.
And he said it was near Makili, did he? Or did he say it was in the Sand
Sea? No, he said Makili was our guide, is the implication.
Okay.
Abdul Hassan Makili.
Abdul Hassan, because there's a town called Makili.
Yeah, there is. But Abdul Hassan Makili.
Abdul Hassan.
He took me back. He got me out. He took me to Benghazi. Where is he? You have a question left, Stoner.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I'm gonna ask where we can find this guide.
Oh, he's a lecherous sort. He's probably at the Temple of Love in the souk, the Benghazi souk. Let me then say that there's a screech as the needle is scratched across, and you turn towards, and a nurse has bumped into you and says, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry." And she's putting the needle back. And then he begins to cough.
Arthur.
We'll cut at that point back to the museum.
Alan's got the COVID. Alan's got the COVID.
Wilbur, you can see light coming around this door. There are voices beyond. What do? Several voices beyond.
Well, it's time to shit or get off the pot. So let's kick that door in.
Strauss is in motion, Avery.
Yeah, no, well, look, I'm not going to say no if there's something telling Strauss that this is the time. But yeah, I will make sure to like shine the light so that he can like see where he's shooting at. I mean, I know we got like, I know there's lights underneath, but like I'm right behind him. I think I might check off a revolver, just in case.
Of course, just in case. And the door explodes inwards into a large space. This is clearly where various bits and pieces are stored that can't be on show at this point. It's brightly lit. There are a handful of civilians here, but they are standing in front of a richly polished copper plate. What do, Wilbur?
Are they talking at all?
They are talking. Yeah, they are talking.
In German?
Yes.
Who ordered the sausage breakfast, gentlemen? Start gunning some of them down.
Okay, so this is confront the mythos and its minions. If you fight human or supernatural foes, say what success would look like. I think I know what you want to happen here.
I don't want them all to die, though. I would like some injured survivors. So maybe I'm sort of like taking him out at the knees. I want maximum pain, but I don't want maximum death. That could clearly be a consequence of a bad roll.
Okay.
You might leave the screaming one in the corner alive after you've killed everybody else, kind of thing. Yeah.
So roll a d6. That's the white d6. Add a d6 if what you're doing benefits from your expertise, and they are not in cover. They are not in cover, so you can add your expertise as a soldier. Add another d6 if you're using a heavy weapon. You're using a submachine gun, so it's not a heavy weapon. So you're rolling the white and the orange dice. Do you want to include the green one?
I think now would be a bit of a good time for the stress dice. So let's have all three and see what we get. Winner, winner, chicken dinner, 5 on the expertise dice, and stress is lower.
Okay, you succeed with no obvious complications or benefits. So they all go down screaming because it's a machine gun. You can cover an area with it. Avery, what do you do?
Yeah, I think I've just kind of like slipped behind Strauss, and I'm just trying to see what is this room, because I think he kind of zeroed in on the people.
Well, I wondered if anyone wanted to roll to investigate, Avery.
Yeah, well, this is happening, and I think like I'm kind of, I'm focusing on anything else at the moment.
Yeah, you read a sitch. I think we're in that kind of territory. So, is this with expertise? Do you know, I'm going to give it to you because you have cryptography, don't you?
Yeah.
So you might spot the significance of something here. So roll with expertise. Do you want to include the stress dice?
Nah, I'll just keep tempting faith. At some point, it's going to come to bite me in the behind, so to speak. But for now, I'd rather wait for that to happen. Nope, get a 5. 4 and a 5 even.
So with a 5, you can ask me one question. The basic information is that there is, bizarrely, you can see this is impossible, but that shiny copper plate is not reflecting the room and the carnage that Strauss is spraying around the room. It's displaying a man in a chair.
Huh. Fun. Yeah. Is there anything in this room that would kind of like info that would lead us to? Sorry, I just got a Facebook message. Go away. I should disable that pop-up. I don't want to talk to that man in the room in the chair at the moment. We've already blown too much of our cover. I want to know if there's anything in this room that could like lead us further.
Well, can I tell you something else that you then notice?
Okay.
Arthur Blake comes into the picture. Do you want to hold that question for a moment? Let's cut back to the hospital.
Okay.
Where Ricci and I'm seeing Blake down close to him, offering some succor.
I think Blake like pats him on the back and holds water out to him, and he's like, Ricci, you with us, man?
Dry sand is falling from his mouth.
Wilson, nurse, get the doctor.
And she puts the tray down and runs out. Stoner, what do you do when you see dry sand emerging from this man's mouth?
I think I recommend that we roll him on his side. Make sure that he's not choking on any sand.
Has the Heimlich maneuver been invented at this point?
This could be a time.
Let's see.
No, I will tell you this now. This is not bits of sand. This is a stream of sand.
Oh yes, of course, yeah. I think it's for a lack of anything else. No, it's 1970s that it was.
So you're banging his back. Stoner's rolling him on his side, trying to clear the airways, but there's just sand just coming out of his mouth. Stoner.
Do I notice anything about the sand? Like,
Yes, it's freaky as fuck. Roll for stress.
All right.
See, Arthur's toying with casting the Elder Sign, but he remembers how much of a toll that took on him last time.
That was a 6, was it? So would Angel increase her stress from 4 to 5? Now, at this point, I have to explain. If it gets to 6, you crack under the strain and you become mine.
Great. Good. All right. Cool.
So, Arthur, I think you need to roll for stress as well, because this, for all that you are in the forbidden knowledge business, this is freaky.
Yeah, it still freaks you out, doesn't it? Otherwise, you're just basically Projekt Prometheus, and you're fine with it. I gain another stress. I'm at 4. I went from 1 to 4 in a very short amount of time, Alan. Nice.
Cut back to the basement of the museum. Avery, do you want to ask me that question now?
Yeah. What the fuck is going on?
You should never say that, because Alan normally replies with a stated line.
Oh, right. Okay. I should know better. I've played with Alan enough. No, I think, yeah. Well, honestly, the easiest question is, what the fuck is going on? Because I think, am I seeing, just as a clarification, am I seeing the whole hospital thing through this copper plate?
Yes. You're seeing Stoner and Blake trying. It's all silent, which makes it slightly bizarre. But you see Stoner and Blake, trying, look of shock and horror on their face. And this man is just there's a pile of sand coming out of his mouth.
Okay. I think I know my question now. It's like, is this room affecting the scene that I'm watching in this play?
You think it is. There is something. Now, your family's been in the arcane intelligence business for a generation or two. Maybe Uncle Charles talked about this kind of stuff. There is something going on here that involves that mirror and or these people. And now that you come to look at it, that large pile of sand before the mirror.
Ha. Okay. I assume Wilbur is like.
I'm going to say at this stage, secure that shit, Carlyle. We need to take that kind of shit with us. I'm going to deal with these Germans.
Well, let's just say to Avery, this does seem like some really weird shit, Avery. So would you perhaps roll for stress before we go any further?
This is how you catch me in stress. Aha, I see how it is. 4 rolls of refusing to roll for it, and now you get me. There we go. I got stress. It's going to go up.
Stress goes up. So Wilbur, you didn't roll with advantage. You didn't get a benefit out of that machine gunning. So I'm going to have these Nazis either dead or crawled into cover. What do you do? You're muted.
Good point. So are they dead or have they crawled into cover?
The dead ones have not crawled into cover.
I wouldn't have expected them to. So some are dead and some are crawled into cover. Yeah. Okay, that's perfectly.
If you'd got a 6 on that confront, then I would have given you some prisoners.
That's fine. We will follow this up because we have a device that deals with people nicely in cover called a grenade. So go into my belt, pulling a grenade, pulling the pin over the head, an excellent toss towards the, and I will be shouting out, "You dirty fighting Germans, running from a scene of a good fight. I expected nothing less." And lob a grenade at them.
We got close to an X card for racism then, but I'm going to go with it. So roll to confront the mythos with a heavy weapon. Just the one grenade or the pair?
Just one. It's always nice to have one in reserve, just in case something larger deserves it. Half track.
Same again then. So with expertise and with heavy weapons this time. So you're rolling the orange, the white, and the grey dice. Do you want to include your stress dice, Wilbur?
I think so. Percentagely, it's in my favour. It should be less. Let us see.
4 dice. What could go wrong?
Well, I got a 6 anyway, so you can still go wrong.
But I would like you to roll the pink failure dice because they are shooting back at you now.
A 6.
Which is equal to or greater. So there is a consequence in play. Oh, we're getting all the rules to work tonight.
We are.
So on a 6, you succeed brilliantly, and the GM will agree with you what extra benefit you get. What extra benefit would you like?
I think we do get a single survivor.
Fine. So you have a prisoner. Also, say what reminds you of the horror of war and or grants you an insight into the horror of the secret war. Roll for stress.
Okay. 6. So the stress goes up by 1.
It does.
That's okay.
And the failure dice was equal to or greater than your highest roll. So you also roll 1d6 for consequences. Add 1d6 if the GM agrees you're in cover. I think they're in cover, you're in the open.
Yeah, I've rolled 1.
Oh, right. 1 to 3, the consequences are dire. Agree with the, because I could have asked you, did you want to roll the stress dice there?
I clearly didn't, so we'll go with that.
The consequences are dire. Agree with the GM if it's bloody and you'll die without swift medical treatment, or painful and you cannot use your expertise until you get medical treatment.
I think what we actually see is this grenade go over quite a few of these display cases, and basically Strauss gets showered by glass from these display cabinets. So he doesn't really get return fire from the Germans, but it's more damage received back from his actions of lobbing the grenade. So I'm going to go with it's painful, I can't use expertise.
Fine. So mark your expertise as unavailable. Now, I am conscious at this point that we are 11 minutes past when I was going to have a break. Do you want a 5-minute break now? Yeah. Can we be back here? Shall we say 18 minutes past the hour?
Yep,
and then we'll play through.
Yeah.
Okay. See you then.
I see you've been playing sweet music down in the Egyptian Museum, Mr. Strauss.
Well, Strauss by name, Strauss by nature.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good job we were already at the assault clock, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It nicely went in time. You've got to dispose of the enemy. I'm sure there may be some more.
I'm struck by the fact that probably the music over the top, whenever Strauss opens the violin case, it's da 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 da. Brrrt, brrrt.
Hose them down. It's going well.
Yeah. I did toy with Arthur could use the Elder Sign to do it, but I think that perhaps having seen how broken Ricky is, and he is the enemy, ultimately, at the end of the day, perhaps if this was one of our boys, he would do it. But as it stands, again, it's like I was tempted to use a magic just to rip the answers out of his head, right? I was like, it feels that's more like what Redeem Zakpal would have done rather than what Arthur would do. You know?
Yeah, we all know where that ended.
Yeah, I still love Redeem Zakpal. That was a great. I was thinking about it the other day how his nephew plunged that dagger into his heart and then blew up the Projekt Prometheus down in the basement. That was great.
Ah, a real drink there, Will.
Well, need a stiff drink after seeing what happened to that poor fellow.
Do you ever watch any of the YouTube GM open office things with the guy that does who wrote Dungeon World? Can't remember his name now. Yeah, Adam Coble. He does a sort of a GM's question answer session.
Okay.
That man, he drinks a lot of scotch.
Oh well, yeah. Man of good taste, clearly.
Oh, I was gonna say, just a heads up. Part of those Facebook messages, like me and a bunch of friends have been trying to put together a Zoom call because we've not talked to each other in quite some time, and turns out the only day schedules might align is this time next week. So,
okay. So do you want to join late, or how do you want to play it?
I checked the event and it looks like Lara's there on the wait list anyway, and Blake's back. So I don't mind Avery being taken out for a week or so. That'll make things easier for yourself, I think. So you have to come in. Oh, I might be coming in at 8 o'clock or 7:30. That's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I've been caught out. I had to bail on a game, not a Gauntlet game, but a local game, because my great niece's birthday ran on. Anyway, Lara, we're just saying, Leandro has a problem next week, so you're in if you want to be.
Yeah, I'm around.
Fine. And thanks for the heads up then Leandro, because that allows me to take this in a slightly different direction. So we have Strauss leaning against the door with his machine gun to one side, blood staining the front of his shirt where glass fragments have hit him. We have Arthur and Angel watching a man die drowning in sand. And we have Avery doing what?
I'm going to go for the plate. I'm going to try to tip it down, smash it, whatever. Just make sure it's not standing.
And I won't make you roll for that because it's just sitting there. It's probably about 3 feet across, maybe slightly higher, slightly oval, and you just knock it to one side and it clatters, and you can feel it's almost like, you know, the hairs on your back of your neck go up and then go down again, as whatever power was making that work has gone. What do you do, Avery?
I'm gonna I feel the power go, so I'm gonna kind of tip it on its other side to see if the image on the plate is still there.
No, it isn't. It's just reflecting the lights in the ceiling. But there is next to it, huddling down, a man.
I think I still have the revolver. I don't know how Wilbur's doing. I think my back is turned to all that, and I think I will kind of point my revolver at that man and say like, you better start talking now.
Interestingly, he's an Egyptian man, and because it fits with the time and the pulp feel that this episode has got, he is of course wearing a fez. Let's just, before you question him, let me cut back to Arthur and Angel. The doctor has arrived, and he just looks at it and says, "Nurse, go and get Dr. Winters." And he says, "She'll be gone for 10 minutes. He's not in the building." What?
Prometheus.
I think Angel's probably going, he just started spewing sand. I don't know what's happening here.
Is there anything you can do, Dr. Wilson?
He goes down and he just touches his neck, and the sand has stopped. But it's almost like the sand doesn't stop with his mouthful of sand. The sand comes out rather like the tail of a snake.
Oh, so
leaving.
It's like it's animated almost.
Like it's animated almost. And he says he's dead. And then the sand begins to move towards the edge of the veranda.
Is there a book? Is there like a bin or a bucket of? It must be a bucket, a bedpan, like that kind of thing.
There's a bedpan. There must be some kind of bin.
Stop it!
I think Stoner, get a bin.
Yeah.
I think I like throw you like whatever is close by.
I think this is roll to do something else, Arthur.
Okay. So you throw it to me, Stoner, rather than do it yourself and risk the stress of a failure.
I'm a little shaky right now. I don't trust myself.
Okay.
I'm struggling to see some expertise in manual labor.
Hand-to-hand combat.
Oh, you're going to try and wrestle the sand down.
I'm trying to pin it with a bedpan.
I'm struggling.
Well, I'm
Arthur's
struggling as well, clearly.
It's the first time he's wrestled with sand. What he discovers, it's peculiarly difficult to grapple.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that it's not the modern day where I just say grab a fire extinguisher or something on the side, right? Like,
can I step on it?
I'm at 4.
I think the trouble is, so what I'm seeing is Arthur goes to grab it, and his hands just go through the sand. It just goes to sand, then it carries on moving. Stoner kind of tries to stand on the tail of this thing, and you just crush the sand. The shape goes, and then it reforms around your foot and goes off.
I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to hope that you give me a chance to relieve my stress at very short measure. So
what are you going to do, Arthur?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, good. Thank you. I rolled a 4. And then I thought my stress was a 6, but it went down to a 2. So, like, I got a 4 on the normal dice, basically. And I use the bucket, maybe a fire bucket, right? Because it's pre-fire extinguisher. So it was full of sand originally, which I quickly throw out and then try and scoop this thing up and, like, push it down.
And like fire buckets at the time, it will come with a lid.
Mm-hmm.
And so you jam the lid on some of this. Some of it is going to get away. A brilliant success might have got all of it or most of it. You get some of it.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to scoop up sentient sand. I never thought I'd get all of it, frankly.
Okay. And it just disappears through the metal work, making up the balcony kind of balustrade. And as it goes off the edge, it just blows away in the wind.
I shakily look up at Wilson. I say, heart attack on the report, I think, Mr. Wilson. You mean?
Yes. He nods.
And I look over at Stoner and I say, welcome to the war, Private Stoner. And I would like to cut there, but I think I would like to maybe have asked about that file with Wilson as well at some point. Just that was too good a line to end on, frankly, wasn't it?
It was. And I think that you can deal with that. The fact is, Wilson filleted the file himself.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't want any of the stuff he told you written down, frankly.
Okay.
So it was deliberately kept thin. There's nothing sinister in it. I painted it more sinisterly than I should. Meanwhile, back in the basement of the museum. What do you do, Avery? Because Wilbur is over there just bleeding out.
Do you understand me? Pointing the gun in his face.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Right. Now start talking. What the hell is going on here?
They simply offered me some money and some artifacts that the museum. He is a kind of department head in the museum structure, and he babbles at you that he didn't know what was going to happen. He none of this was he didn't understand this was going to happen. They were probably going to kill me too, along with the prisoner.
What prisoner?
The man they brought in. He was here when I arrived this morning.
All right. Okay, start with they. Who are they?
The Germans, and he points at the bodies. Wilbur, what are you doing?
I think I'm going to turn to my compadre, Mr. Carlyle, and say, "Oh, Mr. Carlyle, I seem to have taken a flesh wound. It's a bit of a problem, I feel."
Oh, is that what they call it these days?
Well, I've had a few before, but yes, I don't think I'm in the best of shapes here. I think we need to be leaving quite quickly. Should we? So, just to clarify, Alan, the survivor that I specified, is that the Egyptian?
It is.
Okay. I think we should be leaving here, toot sweet, before our actions draw some attention.
Very well.
Should we bring our new friend with us? I'm sure we could question him a bit later.
If you don't mind keeping an eye on him, apparently there's a prisoner about that the Germans brought in this morning. I have a suspicion of who that could be.
I do not. So I will keep an eye on this gentleman.
I give him a look. It's like, come on, who do we know who's missing? Is like the look is trying to translate, but
yeah,
you mean
it possibly could be our friend?
I think Avery's already halfway out of the door when he just says yes.
And behind a crate, at just further down this hall, this large storeroom, you will indeed find Henry gagged and tied.
All right. Well, it seems like we're going to be leaving this museum 2 bodies heavier than we came with it. But
all walking, Mr. Carlyle. It's a good sign, I feel. So yes, using my
I probably didn't describe it, but there is the museum's lorry is in that loading dock.
Oh, Mr. Carlyle, I think this is right up your street. I think we should drive out of here at some speed, and we can take people and evidence with us.
Yes, we should. Do you mind if I ask? Are you feeling all right?
Wilbur, not particularly, no. Not particularly at all, Mr. Carlyle. In fact, I may fall over soon.
Okay, all right. Let's make haste then.
Let's be a jolly good fellow and get that truck started, shall we?
Is Mr. Strauss just saying this to like get a rise out of Avery?
I think this is the tough NCO being tough.
Yeah,
sucking it up, but only for a period of time. We need to get going, Mr. Strauss.
Yeah.
So, Okay, so there's no way the front of the truck's going to hold 4 people. So I'll get in the back with the Egyptian at gunpoint. I'm also going to load on. We're going to wrap the mirror in. Clearly, there's a bit like dusting cloths in manor houses. They'll clearly have that for.
There'll be a
this kind
big
of stuff.
kind of tarpaulin or something.
Yeah, we'll wrap the mirror in that. Do you think we should take anything else, Mr. Carlyle?
If there's
Sand looked pretty normal sand to me.
Henry?
Yeah.
No, Henry's going to go in the front.
Yeah.
He's going to go in the front with Mr. Carlyle.
Can I just ask Avery what sand?
Yeah, I think I was going to say, like, I thought our party would be interested in sand. It seemed quite...
Yeah, I'm not interested in it.
But it's gone.
Yeah, I think as Wilbur says that, I think Avery was just nod. It's like, yes, it seemed to be just sand. I think Avery's thinking that, like, there was a pile of sand here anywhere. It's just sand. I think the enormity of having...
Is it just sand, Avery?
What do you want me to roll, Alan?
Sand doesn't disappear on its own. Would you roll for stress, please, Avery?
You just tell me. Oh, that's a resolute 2, so I keep my cool somehow.
Who cares? It was just sand. Get in a van.
Yeah, exactly.
Get in the van and let's be getting out of here. Alan, before we... I was going to use my other grenade to possibly... Actually, I will consult Mr. Carlyle. Do we think the Germans are going to come here, or do we think some civilian authorities, Mr. Carlyle? Because if it's Germans, we could lay a trap for them. If it's civilians, I'd hate to see some locals and maybe some other people die.
Let's best assume that once this place has been rumbled, the Germans would act accordingly and just cut their losses. Besides, this fellow here probably would, take umbrage on us destroying his museum just a bit more.
Oh, he might not be around to see it for much longer.
I think everyone would just nod at that and offer you a cigarette.
Thank you.
There has to be a scene as Avery gets in the front, fires up the van and drives out of the museum. You know that front gate is still padlocked, don't you, Avery? So what are you going to do?
Oh, for God's sake. I think
there's only one thing you can do, Avery.
I have to get out, and I'm going to...
No, you have to drive through the gates.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Drive. 18 style.
I guess, that mission clock isn't going to go any higher.
Yeah.
We can have a nice low-set camera right at the base of the gate, so the wheel near enough goes right over the camera as the gates fling open.
And
we can even have some Indiana Jones music.
And as the lorry with its canvas back turns sharply to get away, I think probably the canvas flaps aside, and we see a relaxed Mr. Strauss smoking a cigarette while holding the gun on the Egyptian. You are muted, Paul.
Good point. Yeah, holding the gun and the cigarette in the same hand, my other hand is just holding the top of the truck, the superstructure on the rear, as I'm being sort of jingled side to side as Mr. Avery drives us at some speed. Just as we're out. Last draw on the cigarette, quick flick out the back, and I'll turn to my friend and, cutscene.
Back at the hospital, so you've got the cover story is heart attack, terribly sad, and they really must dust here because there's a thin layer of sand in the vicinity. What's the plan, Arthur and Angel?
Back, it's the Winchester. Sorry, that's an obscure reference, probably. Let's go. I think that we go back to where we agreed to meet our companion.
Well, I think the probably I'm going to say that Stoner identified a bar because from there Stoner can guide you to a slightly disreputable guest house.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure that we had all of Henry Wright's equipment and stuff in the back of the car as well. You know?
Yeah. What I want to do before you leave the hospital, though, is Dr. Wilson sees you down the grand staircase. You know, it's as though nothing has happened. And then suddenly there are people running about. And he grabs someone and says, what the bloody hell's going on? We're preparing for incoming casualties, sir. Rommel's turned towards Benghazi. He could be there tomorrow.
Shit. Stoner, we're going to need you for a bit longer. If you have anything that you need to grab, we'll just swing by the barracks on the way back, and I'll clear this with your officer. But if not, we're going straight to the bar.
I've got everything I need right here.
Yeah. This fire bucket, right, with the thing on top. I'm not aware of what there is in the 1940s. It's like duct tape that I could use to seal it, perhaps, or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like to do something before we leave, just to sort of like whatever is reasonable. Maybe even just like seal it in a bag or something. You know, like.
It was like gummed paper tape.
Yeah, I'll use that. Whatever the paper tape is at the time.
So I think it would be appropriate to roll to do something else, Arthur, to see how secure this is.
Cool. I'll do that then. Does that come under my academic knowledge or research? Or,
no.
You know, it's so little that I can do.
No.
Alan,
Does it come under? You can do nothing.
Does it come under fieldcraft, perhaps? No.
I think it's more likely to be mechanical and electrical repair.
If only they were there. If only they were there. I'm just going to roll the flat white and we'll see what happens. And I get a 6. So.
Well, fancy that.
Yeah,
it's perfectly secure. But as Stoner's driving around a corner, you suddenly become aware of the fact that it's going kind of bang, kind of.
Yeah.
Something in there is trying to get out, Arthur. That's pretty freaky. Would you roll for stress, please?
Cool. I get a 1, which is lucky. I would, before we finish the session, I would very much like to bring my new companion into the secret war properly and trying to establish some honest human contact with them. Which I could perhaps be doing in the car on the way over, kind of thing.
Yeah, because this is where we are in the session, I think we'll probably cut this to a montage, which starts something like, so look, Stoner, let's start with Projekt Prometheus. Or, look, Stoner, Queen Elizabeth, 1558. And we'll probably see Stoner's eyes go wide as you impart some of this information to them. But I think I will let you roll to reduce stress using honest human contact.
Just something you mentioned last week, Alan. Something about if it stands a chance of setting the other person over the edge. I am just a bit wary.
Yeah.
Could that happen?
It is possible. But you just need to trust me on this.
5 as well, aren't you? Jesus. Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, you know, I don't want to suggest that this is not due to indulge in meaningless sex in the back of the car, but are there any opportunities for any of these?
You know what?
I tell you what, let's wait till you get to the bar.
I will confess my sins. I will talk about the terrible things I have had to do in the pursuit of this, and the colleagues I have seen driven mad in this pursuit of the war. The Wotan, whatever happened to Redeem, the people I sent off to die in the pursuit of Redeem over in Czech, but it's all worth it because this is the real war. So yes.
I think that's very fair. So confess your sins to your mentor, confidant, Stoner, who's kind of and roll a d6, please.
Cool. Well, I've got a 5, so that means I must perform. I can only turn to Stoner for help again if I perform a task that they demand.
What must Blake do for you, Stoner?
I think that Stoner would probably want to be given a little bit more prestige, a little more power, and I think that he has a sense that Blake can maybe do that.
Fully induct you into the pursuivants, as I have done with my colleague and friend Wilbur Strauss, who was in a very similar position to you back on the field of Dunkirk once upon a time, and is now a strong right-hand man of Her Majesty's Percies. So yeah, cool. I like that.
What I'd like you to think about, Lara, between now and next time, is whether Stoner would like to change the reason why they joined the Secret War, because actually up until this very point, they have not joined the Secret War. Right. And I find myself looking at thirst for knowledge. Think about it.
Yeah.
Right? Just think about it.
I'll meditate on it.
And so I think we will cut to this seedy, bizarre, seedy bar in a back street of Cairo. We will see the truck parked outside, the car parked at the front. And inside, we see Strauss, who is in need of medical attention, quote unquote.
I was actually thinking of, on the way over there in the back of the truck, Alan, with the Egyptian, I was going to indulge in meaningless sex. No, that's actually a joke. I was going to verbally abuse the gentleman for my condition that I'm pretty chewed up here. It's all his bloody fault. He should have gone to the authorities. He should have bloody told somebody. Hanging around with Germans is a dodgy business, and you're going to pay, my friend. Not now, but you're going to pay at some stage. So I'm going to give him a bit of a verbal lashing.
Reduce your stress by 1. Roll a d6.
Okay. Rolling the stress dice. 2. So it doesn't go down by an extra 1, and I think this bloke probably doesn't like me much now.
Your inadequacy is clear to anyone watching, including you. You cannot use your expertise until stress goes up again. Now, that penalty only applies once, so you are currently without expertise, so there is no additional penalty.
Okay, but clearly this guy isn't really impressed, is he?
I don't think he caught any of the Cockney vernacular.
Okay, it went straight over his head. Okay, yeah, I know time's the essence, so I'm happy I've had my little scene.
Stoner, we're back in the bar. Do you want to get leglessly drunk and reduce your stress?
That sounds wonderful. I think that Angel has seen a lot today.
She certainly has. He certainly has. Would you reduce your stress by 1 and then roll the stress dice to see how well it goes?
All right. A 6.
6? Right. On 4+, agree with the GM whether you make a scene that attracts unwelcome attention, let something slip to the wrong person, or carelessly wreck something important or meaningful. I'm just wondering if you kick a fire bucket over.
Yeah, I think that would be reasonable.
I think that would be a really neat point to finish on.
I was wondering if it was going to be like, it's never been the same since my John died.
No, I don't really need to out Stoner yet. So I think that when Arthur comes to look for the fire bucket, we will see it on its side with the lid open and it's empty. Dun, dun, dun. But you reduce the stress, and because you rolled a 6, it was really worth it. Reduce stress by an extra 1.
Yay.
Avery, is there anything you want to do before you have a restful week in the background?
Yeah, I kind of want to make it not restful. I think there is probably like a moment where he steps out of the bar, takes another smoke. I think he just kind of like letting the day wash over him. I'm sure Stoner over there is getting drunk. And someone has to stay at the truck to watch over the Egyptian, and someone's trying to rouse Henry. And I think he kind of reaches into his pocket and takes out that telegram, and I think the words have changed. And
Dun dun dun.
yeah, I think I'm not sure what the wording is, but I think the words are basically going to say that, like, we need you to perform something extra, Mr. Carlyle. Don't tell anyone else. This is deep cover. Go, Mr. Carlyle, or something along those lines. You need to go now.
And almost the epilogue for this episode for Avery is we see him look at the back of the truck, look at the bar, and then disappear into the back streets of Cairo. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to assume that at some point Dr. Wilson will be called to help poor old Wilbur, so that Wilbur will have his expertise back at the start of the next session. But I think I'm going to call it there, unless anyone's really keen to do anything particular.
I don't really want another scene, Alan, but is this a good time to quickly do the who do you like and who do you dislike?
I keep forgetting to do that, and that is very good advice.
I keep reminding you.
You do, and I'm always grateful, Paul. So I'll start on the left-hand side of the character keeper so that Lara goes last with Angel, so she gets a feel for how this works. Let's start with Arthur. Which member of the team do you care most about? Ask them why. It has been Wilbur Strauss. Is it still Wilbur, or has it changed, Arthur?
I think it is still Wilbur, but I think the member of the team I care least about has changed, if we can do that one. Yeah.
Who do you care least about now?
This bloody Private Stoner just kicked over that bloody bucket that we got back. Like, I thought they were a reliable sort, but clearly
can't hold his drink. He's not a big bloke. He's not a big bloke.
Well, yeah. And then next session it'll be an Avery Carlyle buggering off just like Wright did last time. Yeah.
So if you make that change, Will, that'd be great. Wilbur, last time the member of the team you cared most about was Arthur. Is that still the case?
Yes, that will still be the case. But a bit like Arthur, I definitely do want to change my who do I care the least about.
Who do you want to change it to?
I would like to. I can't actually see on the character keeper, and I can't remember Blake's character's name. Mr. Carlyle has impressed me this week, where Blake just buggered off. You know, brought the team into a possible danger zone. So I think he's
fine. It's Henry Wright.
Henry Wright. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Avery. Which member of the team did you care most about? It was Arthur Blake. Is it still Arthur?
Probably not. Only because yeah, probably not at the moment. I'm not sure.
Well, look, if you're not here next week, you can contemplate if you want to. I don't want to pin you down if you want to think about it.
Yeah, because I know my least person care about the least will change. It's not Mr. Strauss anymore, because I think definitely, getting into life and death situation, although he took the brunt of it, brought us closer a bit. So I don't not care about them. I will probably put Blake's character there just because they weren't around. Because part of me is thinking I do care a bit about Private Stoner, because they're getting into this. They don't know what they're getting into.
Yeah,
they clearly don't.
And they're doing it wearing one of your suits.
Oh yeah, well, I could get another one. It's fine. I'll think about it.
Fine. Okay. So then we come along to Angel Stoner. Based on what you have seen so far of them, Angel, which member of the team do you care most about?
So I think that's probably going to be Blake, just because I've kind of got that I perked up at the Sharp code name, and I was like, interesting. And they've been a pretty good mentor for me thus far, so we're gonna stick with that.
So Arthur, why do you think that Angel cares most about you?
Because I've brought them to something bigger.
Right. So Arthur Blake, because he's opened a door for Angel to a potentially more exciting life. Does that work for you, Lara? Okay. And then I'll ask you, which member of the team do you care least about? And you've only met the two of them. So, and it doesn't mean care nothing for, it means least. So which one do you care least about?
I think I was kind of rubbed the wrong way with Avery's attempt at a meaningful exchange between us. I felt manipulated a little bit there. Yeah,
fine. So if you write something in there along that lines, I don't think Leandro will object to using that as fictional positioning for he's a bit of a dick, really. Yeah? Okay. Thanks for the reminder, Paul. Before we finish, I would like to have a quick stars and wishes, if that's okay. If I can start, I'll leave Lara till last because she's just got some stuff to put in those boxes. Let me go. Sorry, I'm not going to pick on you again. Paul, let me start with you, and I'll come back round to Will last because I've a habit to just keep going back.
Yep, no problem. Stars. Well, I think everybody sort of really worked well. I'd probably actually say really to you, Alan, split party's never good, and we were pretty much split for the entire session. The drama was kept nice and high. I like that. I think every character really got something sort of going today. There was lots of dice down the range. Not too sure about the co-op mechanics. But no, really good. And to handle a split team for the entire session, good on you.
Thank you. That's nice of you to say. Leandro, any stars?
Yeah, I do like split. The split party can be like tricky, but I do like that it does kind of like bring out quite a lot of each other being of two characters kind of having been near to each other and seeing how they work. And the fun part is seeing that really clearly laid out in the next session, kind of like toss that into more uncertainty. So I really like about that. I really like these characters of Wilbur's just working class grit, I suppose. I think very much the subtext of Wilbur kind of testing Avery out, like, oh, what are we gonna do now, Mr. Carlyle? What's over there? You want me to go ahead, Mr. Carlyle? That'll be grand. I have been to a museum, Mr. Carlyle. I love that dynamic. And I also really like we are getting kind of like that mentor apprentice sort of thing with Blake and Stoner. I do like that. We're kind of with foregrounded Stoner being like, oh man, this is kind of really interesting, but also really stressful. Oh god, what a day. And Arthur being like, yep, you're part of us now. But then again, we see how that fire bucket goes. I'll toss a star again to you for like stringing this all together. And we're doing wishes later, or are we doing?
I was going to come to wishes second time round.
Okay.
So Lara, any stars?
Stars to everybody. Thank you for being patient with me. I was just trying to figure things out a little bit here. It's my first time playing any kind of version of Cthulhu Dark, so very exciting stuff. These characters are great. I'm really loving all the detail that you're adding in, Alan. This is a really awesome game. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, my star is to you, Lara, because you dropped in with some very experienced players, some of whom have played these rules and this setting before, and you just slotted straight in. So good on you. It can be quite intimidating to drop into a game, session 2. Who knows what had already happened. So no, well done. And back around to Will.
Well, I would like to repeat for Private Stoner, who joined Arthur for the exposition plotliney kind of development. And, you know, thank you very much for coming along to that. I thought it was a nice way of bringing you into the party kind of thing, rather than just like, well, but go take this random private to go shoot up a museum somewhere kind of thing. I liked the whole integration of like the Italian backstory and things like that. I was imagining as like the opera was going on that Private Stoner was like humming along to some of the arias and so forth. And Alan, I do think you do a really good job of splitting the party. I'm not so much against splitting the party because I think it allows you to actually like manage the spotlight between two groups of two rather than have to do it between each one person in one scene kind of thing. But you know, I don't think you ever dive too long. I always flash back to that one in Dunkirk where it all kicked off at the start and we had people in England coming back through the dreamlands over to the thing in the first 10 minutes, but it was good. Are we doing Thorns at this point as well? Or
what I'd like to do is I want to do Wishes this week, and I'll do Thorns next week, and after the last one.
Okay. I would only just say with Paul, I think that cooperate only makes sense on some moves and not on all moves. You know, like Investigate Mystery seemed to really work, but it seemed to really like hamstring Strauss and Leandro when they were doing.
We shall discuss on Slack, shall we not, Alan?
Yeah, and I also wonder about. There's no stress move that doesn't go horribly wrong for you, and I'm like, you can just enjoy meaningless sex. You don't have to like piss people off. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No, and the deal is you automatically get stress back. There is a cost.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think it's fine. I'm like
in an early iteration, the stress return wasn't guaranteed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So once you balance it that way, I think it plays.
I think it's just because I look at it and things go very badly, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, no one can have sex in this game without like it going horribly wrong. Apparently,
no, we did. We had somebody do it. Who did we have use the sex move, Alan? It was
who did
in the first game?
Yeah, one of the very early ones.
American guy, Walter. That's it, Walter. He did use it.
And that that just led to the mission clock ticking on.
I suppose at this point the mission clock is so far up. I'm looking at any tick on it as like a kind of oh my god, no,
absolutely.
Like,
carte blanche. Let me go back round for wishes. So Paul, wishes for next time.
Probably just actually I haven't really got any because I'm going to get some screen time without Mr. Carlyle because he's not there. So I'll get some interaction with some other characters. That was all I was going to ask for, but it sort of sorts itself out, doesn't it, Leonardo? So we're okay there. It was really good.
Leandro, if you were here next time, is there a wish, or is there a wish that you want to slot in for session 4?
Well, I want in between now and session 4 to figure out what the hell this Telegram business is.
That's on you, kid. You invented it. You have to fill that gap.
Yeah. Well, I have 2 weeks, so I'll be fine. I just want to say good luck to y'all next week. That mission clock is quite dire. I don't mind doing the community. Troy walks into everything in fire GIF come session 4, but who knows? Yeah, I think that's just my one wish just for myself. Figure out this whole Telegram thing. I'm looking forward to see what happened, to seeing what the hell is going to happen. Seeing everyone else kind of like interact, seeing a Private Stoner like interact with like Henry and Wilbur for sure. See more of this Cthulhu nonsense going about. But yeah, I think I'm good for now.
Okay. Lara, any wish that you have for next time?
I mean, it's just for me to maybe settle into my character a little bit more, and interact with all the other characters. I'm looking forward to some more chaos ensuing.
So some peaceful and calm one-on-one character interaction in the midst of chaos. I'll do my best. Background, Will, any wishes?
I feel like we know where we need to go. We need to go to Benghazi, and we've got the clock of the Africa Corps advance, and I would like to hit that hard and fast as possible next session to, move location, get stuck into the mystery so that we've got a bit more time to breathe over the last session, perhaps for like the climactic finale kind of thing,
Okay. And the good thing is that if you can get to Benghazi, of course, that will take quite a lot of the mission clock away.
Oh, you've caught on to my cunning plan. Trying to sneak it past the GM.
I think that counts for going somewhere else.
Yes, yeah.
Only 1,500 miles. Okay, so brilliant. Thank you. I will stop the recording there. So wave goodbye to the internet. This always takes a